to spend my life. But like the chairman, I do feel extremely angry at what's happening. Exactly what I feel is that we mustn't be depressed, we must be angry. To be angry, we need to understand exactly how serious the situation is. Let me begin by saying what is in the bill. You wouldn't know this from reading most of the printed press or listening to most of the commentary on the BBC or ITV. The bill fundamentally removes from the Secretary of State for Health the obligation to provide a universal, comprehensive healthcare system. That has been the foundation of the NHS since its inception. The bill abolishes that duty, and it doesn't assign that duty to anybody else. I think the proper analogy for a health service is the fire brigade system. It's something we take for granted that everybody pays for, and it's there for those who need it. What the bill does is to say there will be health services paid for by the state, but they will be limited to what commissioning consortiums, as they're called, apparently led by GPs, we could talk about that, what they think we need. And what they think we need is up to them to decide individually wherever they are. There will be no universal health service under this system. What applies in Suffolk and what applies in Nottingham could be significantly different. The implication of this is the return of inequality, the return of health services where the more money you have, the better service you get. As competition builds up, unquestionably, price will become critical. Government funds will never be lavish again. This we can be sure of. The budget is not going to go up the way it did for 5 years in the middle of the last decade. If anything, it will be squeezed. And as it's squeezed, the consortia will undoubtedly be looking for ways to make economy, and therefore they will be looking for the cheapest providers. And this will eventually be extended from things where it already applies. For example, the provision of GP services, bids from companies that underbid, bids from experienced local GPs, whether it's in Hackney or Derbyshire or Camden. These will be generalized out, are already being generalized out to community services, and gradually will be extended to specialist secondary care services. And what we all know is that when you have price competition, quality declines. Price competition means fewer staff, less well-trained staff, worse paid staff, and that is already happening. The role of personal budgets will become very important. Those of you who work in social care or have experience of social care will know that this is being, as they say, rolled out at the present time in social care, so that instead of being given the care you need if you have a disability, you are given a budget, a lump of money for the year, and told to spend it the way you would like. And the argument is this gives you choice. It's now being extended to healthcare. And the kinds of condition for which it's seen as appropriate are things like diabetes, which are chronic conditions where some predictability is supposed to exist. But the fact remains that if your budget runs out, if in fact you turn out to have more needs than the budget provides for, then of course you'll be left to find the extra yourself. And so immediately we have the option of top-ups, which again mean inequality. Those who can afford it will do it, and those who can't will have to put up with the basic provision. So when David Cameron said on the Today programme 3 days ago that the NHS free at the point of service is one of his commitments, that it's a precious service to which he's committed and he wants to see it improved, as far as I'm concerned, he's insulting my intelligence. I've read the bill. If he hasn't, he's the Prime Minister, he's in charge, and he damn well should have. The bill does not preserve the precious NHS. It is indeed the end of it. It's painful to me to say so because I've been a Labour voter since I could vote, but Labour is very deeply complicit as a party in the preparation of the ground for the Lansley reforms. And every time you watch a debate on Question Time or something like that, you can see the Labour persons, people squirming when the Tories say, well, you did all this, what's new, what's different? And that is unfortunately a fact. We have to be honest and see that the introduction of foundation trusts, the introduction of payment by results so that everything is priced and paid for, the introduction of the independent sector treatment centres, which was an opening to the private sector to get into the provision of secondary clinical care, something that Labour had always maintained it would never do. It would accept the outsourcing of support services, but clinical provision must remain public. Under Milburn in 2000, from 2000 onwards, that went by the board, and the ISTCs, the independent sector treatment centres, were the bridgehead, which brought that in. Lansley could not possibly have drafted this bill had that all not happened. So we have to recognise that behind this new bill, drastic as it is, there lies, in my opinion, an even more drastic, though much more gradual, and frankly semi-secret process of marketisation that was carried out by the Labour Party, and which is a major problem as we confront the question of resisting the Lansley Bill. That in spite of all of this, the opposition has been remarkable. The unions have Unison, to some extent Unite, to some extent GMB, have all taken the question of what was happening to the NHS very seriously. It's impacted, first of all, on unionised jobs in the support services of the NHS. They've seen it more clearly. They've funded some excellent work by Alison Pollock on the PFI, for example, another major preparatory measure put through by New Labour. The nurses have really grasped it very well. I mean, an amazing vote at the Liverpool conference of the Royal College of Nurses 2 weeks ago. Just under 99%. I think it was 474 to 6. I mean, it was funny to hear Cameron say after this that he was hoping to have more full-throated support from the workforce. I mean, how much of an understatement could that be? With the result that Cameron has realised that he's got a Secretary of State who is very close to the private sector, who is deeply obligated to the private sector financially and in other ways over the past 7 years, and who is bulldozing ahead with a bill which could be electorally very costly. At their Sheffield conference, the Lib Dems passed a motion saying it's a great bill, but there are some amendments it needs, and then the list of 8 amendments were actually completely contradictory to the thrust of the bill. Taken together, they would completely neuter the bill. So, as loyal members of the Lib Dems, which is a loyal member of the coalition, that was the way they put it. But when you look at the motion, it's completely incompatible with the bill. And they call for getting rid of competition, for inserting the importance of equality, for making the commissioning process completely open and accountable, and so on and so on, none of which is compatible with actually creating a market. So the real game, and then other people, of course, are also offering possible amendments, but these people are saying these are amendments that would help the bill to go through, would make it a little easier. The doctors might like it a bit more, or managers might like it a bit more, or lawyers might think it was a bit better drafted, and so on. They're unimportant. Lansley could pick almost any of those amendments and say, okay, I'll go with that, and the bill would stay intact. What he can't do is pick all, perhaps any, of the main Lib Dem amendments. And so the tension is between, insofar as it's central at all, the tension is between the Lib Dem rank and file, who clearly at Sheffield showed that they wanted this to be a sticking point. They'd seen the leadership give way on so many principles. Let's not give up the NHS. And Nick Clegg and his closest allies in the coalition who want to stay in the coalition and understand that rejecting Lansley's bill would be a major crisis for the coalition. I don't think that will be resolved in, so to speak, favour of the NHS as we have it, unless we pile on an enormous amount of pressure. And I think that is just beginning. I think the pause should be a moment for us to decide that we are going to dedicate a serious amount of our personal time to this fight over the next 12 months. In all this time, it's up to us, the public, to show that any MP, any councillor who allows the NHS to be stolen from us will carry that stigma for the rest of their political career. We have to get it to them that this is not acceptable. And it's up to us, because it's not going to be done for us by anybody else.
Thank you very much indeed, Colin, and my apologies to the audience for me not having a microphone at the very beginning.